The galactic hegemony had ruled for 10,000 cycles, their dominance unchallenged across 3 spiral arms. Their vast armadas of crystalline ships kept the peace, their version of peace, through overwhelming firepower and technological superiority. Lesser species served or perished. When humans finally achieved faster-than-light travel and encountered the hegemony, they were given the standard ultimatum: submit and serve as a client race, or face extinction. They were granted 1 planetary rotation to decide. The hegemony expected submission. Every new species eventually bowed to the inevitable. But humans were different. Grand Admiral Ziv Kara of the hegemony stood on the command deck of the Immutable Order, his flagship and pride of the hegemony fleet. 15 kilometers of advanced weaponry and impenetrable shields, it had never known defeat in 3 centuries of service. Surrounding it were 500 warships, arranged in the traditional spear formation, enough firepower to reduce Earth to molten slag within hours. "The deadline approaches, Admiral," his second-in-command noted. "The humans have not responded." Ziv Kara's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of mild annoyance. Primitive species often struggle with the concept of deadlines. Prepare the demonstration strike. We'll remove one of their smaller cities, New Zealand, I believe it's called. Sensors are detecting unusual activity near their moon, Admiral. Ziv Kara turned his attention to the tactical display. A massive structure was emerging from behind Earth's moon, a vessel of some kind, but unlike any human craft previously observed. It was crude by hegemony standards. No crystalline architecture, no elegant lines. Just brutal, angular metal, bristling with what appeared to be primitive projectile weapons. Length approximately 8 kilometers, the sensor officer reported. Composition, primarily titanium alloy with unusual reinforcement. Energy readings are inconsistent with its technological level. Ziv Kara flicked a dismissive tentacle. A desperate show of force. Scan it thoroughly. Their technology might have some salvageable elements before we. The transmission alert chimed. "The humans are broadcasting, Admiral. System-wide. Let us hear their surrender," Ziv Kara said, settling comfortably into his command chair. The view screen activated, revealing not a trembling diplomat, but a human female in a dark uniform, adorned with simple insignia. Her face was weathered, her hair silver, her eyes reflecting a hardness that gave even Ziv Kara pause. "This is Fleet Admiral Helena Vasquez of the United Earth Defense Force battleship Retribution," she stated without preamble. "Your ultimatum has been noted and rejected. You have 30 minutes to withdraw from Earth space." Laughter rippled across the hegemony command deck. "Bold words for a doomed species," Ziv Kara replied. "Your single warship, impressive as it might be for your kind, cannot hope to challenge the hegemony armada. Submit now, and we might spare your major population centers." Admiral Vasquez's expression didn't change. "You misunderstand, Grand Admiral. This isn't a negotiation. The Retribution isn't here to fight your fleet. It's here to demonstrate why threatening humanity was your final mistake." She nodded to someone off-screen. "Since you value efficient communication, let me simplify. We know what you are." The transmission ended. Ziv Kara's skin rippled with irritation. Typical pre-subjugation bravado. Target their vessel and... "Admiral." The sensor officer's voice rose in alarm. "The human ship, it's activating some form of... I don't understand these readings." On the tactical display, the Retribution began to glow with energy signatures, unlike anything in the hegemony's extensive database. "They're powering weapons," Ziv Kara demanded. "No, sir. It's more like they're powering reality itself." Before Ziv Kara could respond, space twisted around the human battleship. Not the familiar distortion of a jump drive, but something fundamentally different. Something wrong. And then they heard it, a sound that should not exist in the vacuum of space. A deep, reverberating horn that somehow penetrated the immutable order's hull and resonated in the very bodies of the hegemony crew. Primal fear swept through the command deck. "What is this?" Zivkara demanded, his usual composure shattered. Some form of psychological warfare? The tactical officer's appendages trembled as they manipulated the controls. "Sir, I'm detecting entities emerging from the distortion around the human ship. They don't register as solid matter, but they're there." The view screen showed it clearly now. Surrounding the human battleship were vast, shadowy shapes, some serpentine, others featuring too many limbs, appendages, and geometries that violated known physics. They moved with purpose, flowing through space toward the hegemony fleet. Another transmission from the Retribution. Admiral Vasquez's face appeared again, calmer than ever. "For millennia, humanity fought demons in our dreams, Grand Admiral. We created mythology to explain the shadows at the edge of our vision. We feared the dark, not because we were primitive, but because we sensed the truth, that reality is thin and what lies beyond is hungry." On the screen behind her, humans in strange ceremonial garb performed complex gestures around pulsing machinery. "When we reached for the stars, we discovered the ancient bargain our ancestors made. The price of our survival, the role we were destined to fulfill." She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We are not conquerors, Grand Admiral. We are wardens. Jailers. The thin line between your orderly universe and the chaos that hungers for it." Zivkara watched in horror as the nearest hegemony vessel was enveloped by one of the shadow entities. The ship's transmissions devolved into screams before cutting off entirely. Where the ship had been, only darkness remained. "Impossible," he whispered. You control these things?" "Not control. Never control." Vasquez's expression hardened. "We maintain the ancient compact. We provide the gateway, and they provide the protection. We point them at our enemies, and they." 3 more hegemony ships vanished into shadow. The Retribution isn't a battleship in the way you understand, Grand Admiral. It's an anchor point, a doorway, and you threatened the doorkeepers. Panic spread through the hegemony fleet. Ships broke formation, attempting to flee, only to be caught by the expanding shadow entities. Zivkara ordered an emergency jump to light speed, but the engineers reported that jump drives across the fleet were failing. Reality itself seemed to reject their attempts to escape. "What do you want?" Zivkara finally asked, his pride shattered. "Spread the word throughout your hegemony," Vasquez replied. "Earth is off limits. Humanity is not to be threatened or interfered with. We have our purpose in this galaxy, and it is not to be your slaves." She leaned closer to the screen. "Tell them what happens when you provoke the guardians of the threshold. Tell them you've seen what waits beyond the stars. Tell them you've learned the true meaning of fear." As the shadow entities closed in on the immutable order, Zivkara realized a terrible truth. The humans hadn't developed their technology to survive in the universe. They had developed it to protect the universe from something infinitely worse, something they could summon at will. And the hegemony had given them reason to open the door.